Thank you, Mike. All right, I'm going to probably really screw up on where to stand because I like to move. I also had coffee right before this. I was like, it's either going to be the best idea ever or the worst. So we're going to see what happens. So yes, I am Sam Torres, and I get to work with my partner and run an agency called Grey Dot. But if you've seen me speak anywhere else this year, you know that I've been talking about investigations. No, that's the same slide. Okay, here we go. So I've been talking about traffic drop investigations because, frankly, for my agency, that's what we've been doing a lot of this year. Okay, good, it is working. So some of this will look familiar, but also for this crowd, can I also, and maybe the other speakers didn't want me to tell you, we all came together and we're like, our regular talk doesn't cut it for this crowd, right? Like, we have to step it up. Y'all are intimidating, and it's awesome. So what I wanted to talk about is traffic has changed. Things have gotten weird. We also now have the fun problem sometimes of having a lot of data, and what do we do with it? And then also just how do we make sure we know what's really happening? How do we properly set expectations? So, for example, with these investigations, I'm doing a lot of work of we know AIOs have affected us, but how much? By the way, if anyone can ever give me an actually good answer on that, please. But also I want to talk about something that's real. I'm not going to call anyone out because I know there's also people here with their bosses and I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But I've seen a lot of times where people are using LLMs to analyze their data. And it doesn't seem to matter how many times we talk about the fact that they make things up. They always tell you that your question is good, even when it might not have been. And your data isn't safe. So I've even seen some GPTs come out that are like, this is for GA4. Please stop doing that. Your client didn't say it was okay, and your boss, if you're internal, probably didn't say it was okay either. But it is something that we're doing because it kind of makes things on easy mode. And so really what I want to talk about is, are you using the right tool for the right job? Right? If you're working with messy data, things that are chaotic, unstructured, like a lot of language things, that is where LLMs shine. That's what we should be using them for. But if you have structured data and not like schema, I'm going to let Martha continue to be the queen of that because she is. When I say structured data, I just mean, is it tabular? Is it, are you working with anything really numbers related? That's where let's start using machine learning instead. And what's really fun is you can actually use LLMs to make that a lot easier. So really where machine learning is so good. One of my favorite things, and I could probably talk about this for just why machine learning is superior for 30 minutes, but I don't want to do that to y'all. Machine learning models, they are built to do very specific things and they are really good at them. So things like if you want to use BERT topic to do keyword clustering, it is phenomenal at it and in so many different languages. Other things about it, a lot of these models have actually been around for 10, 15 plus years. So they have been through a lot of rigor, a lot of testing. There's a lot more transparency in what has been used to train these models. So if you're ever worried about bias, you can start to understand that a little bit better. Plus, they've made the rounds in academic areas. So when we're talking about data science and academic machine learning models, they really have been tested by a lot of things, but maybe not us as much yet. I'm hoping we'll change that. They're really good at recognizing patterns, obviously if there's anything regarding math. Another thing, it's always going to be the same result because it is more of that mathematical analysis instead of just, well, I imagine ChatGPT is like, well, today I feel like I like this, which sometimes is great. I'll also be honest, I did not write my talk title, y'all. ChatGPT did. I am a developer. I cannot wordsmith. It's bad. You don't want that from me. Other things, it's more efficient than LLMs. So if you do have a lot of data where you're running into API limits or token limits, machine learning is actually going to be a lot more cost effective for you. And then it's also going to be honest with you. Again, it's not just going to be the, yes, that's great, and let's continue. It's just going to tell you what's going on. So a lot of times, though, when talking about this, and again, these are a lot of things that I think a lot of us already know, but we're still not using them. And why is that? Well, they seem a little scary at first, right? They're not as user-friendly as LLMs, right? Just having a conversation with ChatGPT is super easy. We can all do that. My 9-year-old does that. It's terrifying. We're talking about it. So I want to introduce you to Google Colab. And I want to shout out, Dana and I were talking about it, and she was like, I don't really know what is the point of a collab versus anything else? So thank you for that question, because that was perfect. And if I were to tell you that it is a cloud-based Jupyter notebook, if that means anything to you, then honestly, you probably don't even need to be here. And sorry, you're still having to listen to me talk anyways. But what it does do is essentially, it builds you a dev environment. That could you set this up yourself on your local computer? Absolutely. But I can tell you the first time I did that, it took me like half a day, and I still had a lot of things that didn't work. So this is where it's going ahead and it's setting up that environment for you, which just makes a lot of things much easier. It's also free to use. Who doesn't love free? Other things I love about it, it is easy to share, so you can send the notebooks, so other people can give you comments on the methodology, on your results, but it's also yours. When I put in GSC, I said that right, yeah, and GA4 data into Google Colab, it's not being used to train anything else. So like for my client who had comments on their website written by a dev about Richard's an idiot, that's not going anywhere. Unfortunately, we did actually find that about a client on ChatGPT, so that was, yeah, that was fun. They read comments, y'all. It's not good. But also, with all that together, it is a great learning environment because you can break it. You don't actually have to worry about blowing anything up. And then version control, if you haven't started using it, why not? It makes your life a lot easier. So this is what a Google Colab notebook looks like. Also for context, I will be giving away all of these slides and all of the notebooks referenced and all of the models. I've built notebooks and I'm giving them away for free because I don't like to not sell things. Like, I'm not trying to sell anything. It probably makes me the worst salesperson ever, but whatever. So like this is a tool that I put together in less than an hour the other day for a client of just creating, putting together your variant and control for URLs for A/B testing. And so I'm going to be walking you through this workflow, but like there's a ton of different applications. But yes, so this is what it looks like. The way that it operates, you first have code cells. So that's where all the magic is happening. I don't manually write anything that goes in there anymore. We're going to talk about that. Text cells. If you've ever seen me speak, you know I love documentation. Document. Makes things so much easier. Also, because as I get older, I can't remember what I was thinking about 6 days ago. What do you mean I'm supposed to remember what I decided 6 months ago? What? And then the rest of this, you can reference it. One thing I do want to call out, RAM and disk usage. That's going to be something important to look at if you are working with large data sets and you're finding that you're running into these issues. You can start adding more CPUs. If you run into that problem, you're using it right, and that's fun. Okay, so let's actually put together and use it. So this is the workflow that I use. And yes, I use Claude to do most of the heavy lifting. You can use whichever LLM you prefer, whichever one is actually approved. Let's not get anybody in trouble. But my hope is that you're going to be able to take these things to make your prompts better so that you're getting the right solution, you're getting something that actually works for the use case that you're putting together, and then again, is repeatable. So I always ask myself, what am I actually trying to accomplish here? What kind of data am I trying to get to? What is the answer I'm looking for? And then also, what is the data that I have to get me there? What's available? What's actually going to help me get the answers I need? And then I'll even go to Claude and ask, like, which of these what models should I use based on these things? I choose the model. I ask Claude to build me the entire notebook. It does. I download it. I upload it into Google Colab. I almost always have some troubleshooting, so I will say it actually typically doesn't work first out of the box. I usually get to like step 7 or 8, and then I'm like, this broke, tell me what happened. But I will also say a Shopify engineer taught me his best trick for AI coding like this, just saying, are you sure, at the end of every answer. They rewrite the whole thing. It actually usually becomes a little bit more efficient code too, which is cool. Okay, but let's talk about what am I trying to do? What kind of problem am I trying to solve? Again, these are the things that if you use this language, you're going to get much better responses in your prompts. So classification, are you just trying to group things together? This is really useful, like if you're trying to tag a bunch of URLs according to what content topic they're talking about, so you can run an analysis based on that. If you don't have good folder structure, which I'm sorry, because I've seen it a lot. Regression, are you trying to predict the future? Are you trying to find patterns that you can tell what's going to happen next? Clustering, this is slightly different. This is where you're trying to find neighborhoods. A lot of times classification and clustering seems like the same until you start getting really into it. Removing noise. So this has, I put that in here. The technical name is dimensionality reduction. I was like, there is no way I'm going to be able to say that on stage and not trip over it. But yes, what kind of data do you have? Do you need to remove a bunch of stuff? So like I've done this with AdWords scripts. Yes, that's how old I've been doing this. I still say AdWords. That, you know, I'm just trying to take out the junk so I can figure out what are the gems to add to our campaigns. And then, of course, we're going to talk about anomaly detection. But knowing kind of what the overall method you want to get to, this will help improve your prompts. And then also from what's the data you have to help you with it. The size of your data set's going to matter. So are you talking about like you have 30 days data versus 16 months data? That's important. What format is your data in? Yes, you can actually use images. So there's a lot of different models that can actually help on image sourcing and analysis, so some cool stuff. When you're working with time series, do you need to worry about seasonality? So like we just had Black Friday, which of course doesn't happen on the same day every year, which can make analysis sometimes really difficult. There are models that can take in holidays and can follow holidays for all different kinds of geo areas. Because obviously, you know, my partner is in Canada, so we're lucky. My agency respects both, so we're closed a lot. But you know, the Canadian holidays versus U.S. holidays versus UK versus Germany, all of those are really going to change things. How many dimensions are you trying to look at the data? So how many different angles of the data are you trying to look at? That's really going to sometimes dictate to you exactly which models you want to use. And then what is the quality of your data? When I first started working with machine learning, this was probably the most frustrating thing that I had to learn a really, really hard way, is just some models can deal with null or zero values, and some models, frankly, just fall apart at it. So knowing, you know, do you need to do that? That I would say starting to get in the process of you clean your data first, that's usually a good idea. Okay, so let's see it in action. As my title said, we were going to talk about anomaly detection and forecasting. And then when I was planning this, I definitely had a maniacal laugh, because plot twist, you use the same models. So they actually do the same thing. It's just a question of, are you asking the model to kind of point out to you what's weird, or are you asking the model to have your crystal ball and tell me what's going to happen next? So when you're doing this, these are my 3 favorite models to get started with. Isolation forest, we usually just call it LOF, and then forecast residual approach. So let's dig into each of these. All right, so isolation forest, this one's it's a great one to start with because it's pretty flexible. It can work across a few different dimensions. I will say if you're starting to push like 8 dimensions, this may not be the best, but this is a really fast model where you can get things pretty quickly, and it's very good at pointing things out. One thing I will say is sometimes it points out too many things, but if you're like me, I'd rather have more things to wade through than nothing. It's not very good at gradual changes either, but this is a really robust model that can take a lot of crappy data, frankly, and still give you some really useful insights. The LOF, so I did not understand this until I found graphics that pointed it out, and it's really just finding neighbors and basically like who doesn't belong in the neighborhood or who's a little bit weird. So it's really good when you have multiple dimensions or like anything keyword related where you're trying to say like, okay, like as an agency, we talk about JavaScript, which is not the same as migrations, but we do often talk about JavaScript-based migrations. So like how do you differentiate between all of these because they're kind of relevant, but not always. It's just really good stuff. So this is also really useful if you're trying to do any kind of anomaly detection in A/B tests. Love it for that. And again, really, really great with anything word-based. It's less good if you are trying to find more overreaching problems or far-reaching. And then if you put in too many dimensions or too many wildly different things, like I would think like a grocery store, you're probably going to have a hard time because you just have so many different things. Okay, and then forecast residual approach. This is single-handedly my favorite, but it's also the one that tends to be the most persnickety. I think we don't use that word enough. So there's actually, so forecast residual approach, there is a specific one called Profit that's based on this. That is incredible. So Profit was actually created by the Facebook team. Do y'all ever feel like they used to be really cool? Like they made React, they made Profit. They've really let us down. Nobody here's from Meta, right? Okay, God. But what's really cool about Profit is that's the one I was talking about earlier that takes in all those holidays in so many different countries. It can do the work in a ton of different languages. But like, no joke, I was building a notebook using Profit, and it worked, and they changed the model, so literally a week later, my notebook no longer worked. It took about 2 hours to troubleshoot it, so I got it working again, but yeah, this is where I say, like, it's my favorite, but of course, that also means she's the highest maintenance. But this is really good. If you're talking about time series, which for SEOs, we are usually talking about time series data, right? She's really good at that. She's also really good at the gradual. I don't know why I just made her a woman either. That's weird. But really good at identifying gradual shifts, which I will say for us and the investigations that we've been doing, it's been exactly that, of how do I identify like the big changes from algorithm updates versus we've just had these kind of content or, you know, entity drift is going on. It's also really good for SERP volatility. If you don't have a large enough data set, this won't really stand up for you. You need to have enough data. So if you were to say, like, I've only got 30 days of data, that's probably not enough unless you tell me it's log files. Then maybe we're going to have enough. And then, like I said, it can be a little bit fragile at times. It's slowly coming. Okay, so this is one of the notebooks that I'll be giving away, and just like everybody else, my video's not working, that's totally fine. But this was just to show you, like, as you scroll through it, you actually get all the graphs, you get really pretty stuff, and you end up with something like this. So this was an anomaly detection model that I did. So you can see it not only shows you where maybe you should investigate that things went wrong, but also shows you where things went well, because I would say don't forget to do that as well, of analyzing where things actually went right. I think a lot of times we might focus only on, oh my gosh, what went wrong? But if you focus on the what's right, then you can start doubling down and move forward that way. Other things I like about it is sometimes, and this is probably hard to see, but you actually get like entire charts of what are the days to look at. So just a lot of fun stuff that if you're like me and you want all the data, this is how you play with it. Okay, so those are some of the samples. Like I said, those are my favorite models to get started with. All of those notebooks I'll be sharing for free. But I do want to encourage everyone to keep learning. So everything I know about machine learning, I learned from Lazarina Stoy, who was a speaker here last year. She's amazing. She has a community called ML for SEO. Highly recommend anybody join it if you're interested. She gives a ton of free resources and really just a beautiful person through and through. Also, Noah Lerner, I think he's here. Oh, he's right in front of me. Love it. So he started the SEO community with some really wonderful folks. That is a great place to ask questions, to keep learning. They even have rules. You're not allowed to ever say, like, is this a dumb question? You literally have to say, help me get smart. So I love that. And then if you've ever met me, you know I love women in tech SEO. It's literally tattooed on my body. It's how I met my business partner, Arij, the founder. I will follow her into the depths of hell all over the world. I have followed her all over the world, actually. But Women in Tech SEO, also a great place to go learn, ask a ton of questions. But all three of these communities, this is really where I think the most opportunity is for continuing to learn and get guidance. And then, yes, follow Lazarina Stoy. Also, Brittany Muller is a great resource. She just started a new community, Orange Labs. I believe that is a paid one, but super fantastic. And I will say, if you have questions for me or want to see specific notebooks, those are usually going to be the best places to get a hold of me. But you can also follow me on social. So thank you.